All right, Groovesters and Groove Stars, really excited for this Groove Growth program with an old dear friend who is kind of a maniac in so many really cool ways. And we're going to talk about the power of habits and rituals and behaviors and how to reprogram your mind. But before we do all of that, my brother, Croix Sather, we got to talk about a little bit about you. Give everybody a little bit about your background and how you got into being this ridiculous dude that you are.
How far back do we go?
Well, to where the journey began of the craziness, the incredible accomplishments. They're frankly mind-boggling for most of us to take in what you do and what you're still training to do and whatever. So give us a little bit of all that, man. It's just super interesting to, maybe not, you probably said it a billion times, but for the rest of the world, we want to hear the story.
It actually does go back to my childhood. I remember being a little kid, and I remember looking through the Guinness Book of World Records and saying, "Oh, I'm going to be in this one day." Because that was back, a long time ago, before the internet and all that. And my family wasn't a family of readers, so the only book I had was the Guinness Book of World Records and like a couple other little things. But I would look through that and I looked at all these crazy things, can I hula hoop? Can I climb a mountain? What can I do? And none of them really stuck to me, but that idea sort of stuck in my mind. Because, when we're children, we have these ideas, these grand ideas that we can become anything. And all in the same day, I'm going to be a firefighter, a police officer, a doctor, the president of the United States. We're going to do all of that in one day. Yep. But then you grow up and life happens. And I became a carpenter, and that's what I was for a whole bunch of years, just like my dad and my brothers and my uncles and everybody else. So I was in a family of carpenters. And then I started reading, and I started reading these personal development books, and all of the personal development books, whether they were antique books, like from way back when, or new modern masters, they all said the same thing. What would you do if you knew you would succeed? And that question changed my life. And I kept asking that question over and over and over until I had heard about a guy who had run across America. And I'm like, that's the coolest freaking thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm going to do it. But I wasn't a runner, and I was almost 40 years old, and I didn't care. I was going to do it. I was going to find a way, hell or high water, I was going to find a way to do it. So in 1 year of training, I went from a non-runner to running a marathon a day for 100 consecutive days from California to New York. I literally ran across the United States. And each day I gave a speech to audiences that are in challenge. So addiction centers, homeless shelters, rural high schools, all these amazing groups that are trying to help other people have a better life. So every day was a speech in the morning, and every day was a marathon in the afternoon.
That's just insane. You ran 100 marathons in a row. How do you even do that? How does your body recover from that? How much did you eat? I mean, there are like so many questions that come up on behalf of the group community. I got to ask them, I'm like, did you have to eat like a billion calories to do that? I mean, how did that work?
I ate anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 calories a day. So over the course of the trip, I ate potentially as much as 1 million calories.
God.
And it was over 1 million steps as well.
Wow. And from that, I mean, first of all, how did your body go? How did you do that? How did you mentally prepare to put yourself through that level of intense day after day after day, 100 days in a row, man?
Well, luckily, as they say, naivety is bliss. Yeah. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I had no idea what I'd be going through. And I had trained up to the point where I was running 20 miles a day for 5 days a week. And that was the most training I had done. I had only done, I think, 1 or 2 full marathons, and up until the point I got to the start line. So when I started that first day, that first marathon, that was only like my 3rd marathon in my whole life. And then I was doing them day after day. So what ended up happening is my body kept breaking down for the first 3 weeks. And literally it was getting worse and worse and worse. The pain was getting worse and worse. I could barely get out of bed in the morning. It'd take me 15 minutes just to kind of stand up and start moving. It was absolutely excruciating, right? With my face would tear, my eyes would tear, just because the pain was so torturous. And on day 21, I'm coming into Las Cruces, New Mexico. And I had already run 25 miles. I had 5 more to go that day. And so with 5 more to go, 10 o'clock at night, my body shut down. I collapse. I'm sitting on the street. It's in the dark. Not the safest city in the country. Not the safest part of the city either that I was in. but I couldn't do anything. And then, so I sat there, I rested for a few minutes. I got up, I walked a little more. Then I sat down, I rested. I could have called my crew and I could have said, guys, come get me, because I had a team with me. I was the only one running, but I had a support team. And I could have said, guys, come get me. But if I did that, what would have happened the next day?
Mm-hmm.
It would have been easy to call them up again a few miles short and not finish the run. And the next day and the next day. And eventually I'm not running across America. I'm only running to, I don't know, Louisiana, halfway or something. So I pick myself up, I walk, I sit down, pick myself up, I walk and sit down. What should have taken me an hour or so to finish took me 4 hours. I get back to the RV because we were sleeping in an RV camper. Crash. I fell asleep for 4 or 5 hours, started my day all over again. And that breakdown period lasted for 2 or 3 weeks after that. It wasn't until day 54. I remember day 54, I woke up and it was like, my body said, finally, okay, dude, I get it. You're not going to give up. We're in this for the long run. Fine, let's go. And that was the day that I realized my body was getting stronger. But what was really happening is in those 3 weeks after my body collapsed, I was actually getting stronger and stronger and stronger. I just didn't realize it. I was making progress, even though I couldn't see it and feel it. And we forget that when we're on our path to success, whatever that means, whether it's more money, being an entrepreneur, starting an online business, success in our bodies or our relationships, we forget that sometimes we're making progress, even though we can't tell that we're making progress. Mm-hmm. My speaking career was the same way. When I decided to become a professional speaker from a carpenter, I had no idea how to speak in front of an audience. But, week after week after week, practicing, getting more education, more coaches, more training, all this other stuff, making tons and tons of mistakes. Eventually, I figured it all out. And, now I've been on TED stage twice. I've spoken to some of the biggest corporations in the world. And it doesn't happen overnight. I didn't run across America in one day. I did that in a year of training plus another 100 days. Right.
And tell us, because this is just so fascinating to me. We've been friends a long time, but it's like, I always get super interested in this. What things came to you while you were doing those 100 consecutive marathons? What revelations did you have, or what insights did you have? Or give us a little bit of the inside the mind of Croix Sather, the ridiculous runner dude.
The only thing that after like the first couple of hours, my mind anyway starts to shut down, and it just go into kind of a semi-meditative mode to even just sort of a trance where like nothing's happening in my mind. But the only thing that I would have to keep telling myself over and over, and this is all the power of self-talk, is I'm going to finish no matter what. I'm going to finish without injuries, and I'm going to get there. And I don't care if I have to sit on a skateboard, go in a wheelchair, crawl, it doesn't matter. I'm going to get there one way or another. And that's what I kept telling myself. And when a lot of times it was a matter of, can I run to the next street light? Because the pain was so bad. And then just focus on the next street light, and then the next street light, and then the next one. And that was it. And then you do that over and over, these small steps, you eventually get success. Mm-hmm. If you, for example, if you have, say, a website that's like a blog site and you write a blog article, the reason most blog sites don't make any money is because people give up before they have a chance to succeed. They don't write enough articles. They don't have enough information on there. They don't deal with the grind for long enough. And that's what it takes to succeed. And I'm not one that says, hustle and grind, all this BS that the society is screaming about now. Oh, you got to hustle and grind, the Gary Vaynerchuk sort of mentality. At times you do. But overall, it really comes down to direction and consistency. Most important things, direction and consistency.
Now, you've gone on, before we jump into what you teach and what you share with the world, which I really am super excited about, and the Groove community is going to absolutely love because it really is super powerful. You've gone on to do some other pretty ridiculous things. Just give us one more of your crazy thing, that ultra marathon deal. What was, how did you even conceive of that deal, running across the desert or whatever you were doing?
Well, when I was getting closer to the end, nearing the finish line of Run Across America, I was talking to my crew, and I'm like, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? And you're like, you idiot, shut up and finish this race. I'm like, no, there's something else. There's something else. But the reality is, when I got to the finish line, I didn't know if I'd ever want to run again. You know, I thought I might just hang up my shoes forever, but after literally just a couple of days, like I missed it. I needed to run, and I don't love running, but I love the effect it gives. I love the chemical reactions it creates in the body, the health, the fitness, having a, you know, super healthy, superhuman body. That's all amazing. The running itself is just a tool to get there. But then at the end of it, I was like, what am I going to do next? And there aren't many things harder than running across America, but one of them is running through Death Valley, the hottest and harshest place on the entire planet. And so that's a 146-mile run nonstop from the lowest point to the highest point in the continental United States. So to give you an idea of how much vertical climb that is, if you take the Empire State Building and you stack 10 of them on top of each other, that's how much elevational climb I had to do. That's nonstop, 3 days, no sleep.
That's just ridiculous. And now, how did you train for something like that?
That training was kind of the opposite of Run Across America. Run Across America was every day, you know, getting up to somewhere close to a marathon a day. Where this one, I'd run less, but the days I would run, I was running much more distances. So I would run every Saturday, a minimum of 50 miles. And then every Sunday, I'd end up being on the couch all day and completely useless because my body is just fully fatigued and exhausted. And I remember, you know, my kids were little at that time and I was married at that time. And we talk about that every once in a while. I was like, yeah, no, I was pretty much gone every weekend. Even though I was physically in the house on Sundays, I wasn't there. I was a zombie the whole day.
Yeah. And what was the hottest moment? You're running 146 miles without stopping, right? I mean, so you're eating and drinking as you're going and you're doing whatever. What heat did you actually have to deal with?
The hottest temperatures I got to was 117 degrees.
That's ridiculous, bro. That is like so ridiculous. I mean,
and then on the top of the mountain, it was below freezing. So I went from the hottest to the coldest that you can go to in such a short period of time.
That's just crazy, man. So, well, now with all of that background established of how much you have been able to challenge yourself to do. I mean, it's quite impressive. It's very remarkable. Hardly anybody can really fully comprehend what it means to run 146 consecutive miles through Death Valley. Oh, never mind 100 marathons in a row, whatever. Tell us a little bit about what the takeaways and what you're now teaching people, because it really, you've developed a bit of a roadmap to success that anybody can embrace. And we'd love to learn from you about what that looks like.
I used to be in the world of the harder you work, the more you succeed. And my dad was like that. He worked like an animal. He worked 6-7 days a week. He preached on Sundays. He was one of the busiest guys I've ever met. And my brothers and my uncles, they were all the same way. We all grew up with this blue collar worker mentality. You know, the harder you work, the better you do. And yet we're working as hard as we can, and we're working for very wealthy clients, renovations, additions, building homes, things like that. And yet these people have a pretty damn good lifestyle. They're working a lot less, a lot easier than we are, and yet they're incredibly, amazingly, spectacularly rich. And so I started to realize, even as a fairly young guy, a teenager in my young 20s, is like, yeah, there's a disconnect here. Working harder doesn't mean more success. It doesn't mean being better. And it certainly doesn't necessarily mean a bigger bank account. And so what I realized is that you can work as hard as you want. You can be as busy as you want. And most of us are busy all day long, working for 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours a day. And yet most of us aren't succeeding any better. Each year, our life doesn't get better. Our bank accounts don't get more full. Our bodies aren't more healthy. It's because we're working in the wrong direction. We're not doing what's most important. Instead, we're just bought into this idea, this hypnosis that busy means success. I work less now than I've ever worked, and I'm making more money than I ever have. And I have a far better lifestyle. I have a lifestyle that most people would kill for. I live in South America and in the United States. I go back and forth between the two. Last week, I was on the beach in Colombia. I live in Medellin. Colombia is my main home, my principal place. I'm in Connecticut with my kids when I'm visiting back and forth there. They're now almost adults going to college. And I travel the world, you know, pre-pandemic and now again, traveling the world. This isn't a bad lifestyle.
Sure. And so tell us, how did you program yourself, or what lessons did you learn that you can share with us of going from the disconnect that you witnessed between the level of hard work that you were doing and the level of success that others seem to be having without the hard work? How did you make that transition, and what did you learn that you can share that others can adopt for themselves so they can have that same level of success?
The biggest problem or the biggest obstacle to our success is distractions, doing things that we have no reason or need to do. And especially in today's technological age, we all have a phone next to us, and they're beeping, buzzing, chiming, dinging, donging, vibrating, whatever. And even when they're not, like, we have this need to check our phone. It's just an example of things that we allow to distract us. And so if we're allowing all these distractions to occupy our time and consume our value, our only asset we can't get more of, which is time, then that's less time we could be working on the things that actually matter. It's less time with our family, less time to create a better business, less time to do anything that's actually important that matters. And so what I found is, when I've just dissected my life and the clients that I've worked with, when do things line up and everything just goes smoothly, as if the universe is saying, yes, this direction? And when does it feel like you're fighting it? You're working as hard as you can, but yet you're not getting any movement forward. And the difference is being in alignment with your goals. And so I know, for example, if I don't exercise first thing in the morning, there's about a 98% chance I'm not going to exercise that day. I have to do that first thing in the morning. And then when I go in to get into the office, if I don't get right into the office and the very first thing I do is work on the most important thing, like if I check email first, or social media, or answer text messages, or any of that other garbage, if I do any of that before I start that first hour of focused work on the most important thing, I won't get anything done, because I'll be putting out fires for the whole day. I'll be responding to clients, to the customers, to complaints, to issues with the websites, to whatever. But if I sit down at my desk, I put my phone away, I turn it off. I don't have any announcements on my phone. It doesn't do a single thing for me. I have to look at it to be able to see any buzzers, notifications, or anything. I'll put my phone away, I'll sit down, and I'll start writing, because that's the most important thing I do every day, is write. And I'll start writing every single day for a minimum of an hour. And what I find out is that I usually end up writing for 2 or 3 or 4 hours before I start doing all the other stuff. And that's how I keep moving the direction that I need to move it. So most important thing, writing books. Most important thing, being on interviews like this one. These are the most important things I need to do.
And so what you're saying then is that your habits are largely driving your success.
Habits, behaviors, and beliefs.
And so what do you counsel people to, let's break those down: habits, behaviors, beliefs. How do you help people adjust those, or alter those, or grow those, or what would you call it, to make them move you in that direction that you're looking to go in?
It's a great question. The reality is that we can change anything we want in our life in an instant. Someone who smoked all their life, all of a sudden they decide to stop smoking and they never smoke again. That moment of decision is easy. The hard part is the conditioning day after day after day going after that. And so that's where the habits come in, and your beliefs is what controls all of that. But sometimes for most of us, in fact, most of the time, is we need to recondition our mind every day to do the things that we need to do. So I've been conditioning my mind now, my body for it's been 12 years since I've started this whole running campaign thing. And so I've had to condition my mind and my body and my beliefs to say, wake up, go to the bathroom, put my running shorts on and my sneakers, and head out the door instantaneously before my mind's even awake to argue with me. And then I'm running. But after doing that for a certain amount of time, now if I don't run for a particular day, like yesterday, I didn't run because I ran 3 long days in a row. And so I gave my body a day off of rest. And so I didn't run yesterday. I'm like, this is so weird. I feel like I'm missing out on something because I'm not running.
Yeah.
And if the same thing of work, if I don't sit down and I don't do my writing or the interviews or the other things that are most important, if I don't start off and do those right away, now I've conditioned my mind so much. It's like something's wrong. I'm not in alignment with who I'm supposed to be. But that takes some mechanical work in the beginning until it becomes an automatic behavior. And this whole idea of habits form in 21 days, It's absolute BS. It's not true. And it comes from one sentence in a book that was written in 1960, taken out of context, simplified, and it became a legend. But it's absolutely not true. But it does happen in the first 21 days. Like my body broke down, not by chance, on day 21. But the first 21 days is that transition. The next 21 days is the adoption. And the final 21 days, so it's 63 days in total, is the reconditioning. And then in 63 days, so roughly 2 months, that's when you can recondition your body, your mind, or to whatever you want to do. And that's the mechanical part of the process. You have to go through the mechanical part of the process to get everything else to change.
And what do you do to encourage your clients or people you take your courses and what have you? How do you get them to buy into that? Because that ain't easy, man. I mean, there's a reason why not a lot of people run a marathon. I've only run one. So, and was really proud of myself for finishing the dang thing, you know. How do you help people overcome that lethargy or that the difficulty of it? What do you do? What do you say to them? What can they work on?
Well, the first thing is realizing how many things are getting in your way of success. We don't say no. We don't prioritize ourselves nearly enough. And we certainly don't prioritize our goals and our dreams. We just fall into this pattern of get a job, get a good education, get a job, stay in that job and work for 40 or 50 years and eventually retire. But retirement's not the goal. Enjoying life in the goal throughout all of your life. That's the goal. This whole idea of working to one day not have to work anymore, that is the most ridiculous lie we've been sold. We should be enjoying our life throughout our whole process. And that doesn't mean traveling the world necessarily, but it means getting rid of all of the things that are preventing you from creating that life that you want. You know, life isn't about working 51 weeks a year to have just 1 week off to go to the Bahamas or something. It should be about enjoying your life throughout the whole time, having multiple long day weekends, you know, 3, 4, 5 day weekends, you know, maybe taking 3 or 4 weeks off a year. And some people are like, oh my God, I could never take 3 or 4 weeks off a year. But yes, you can. You could take 3 or 4 months off a year. You and I both have common friends that they do that. They take 1, 2, 3, 4 months off a year. I know a couple of people that work only 6 months a year. They work 6 months and then take 6 months. And that's how their lifestyle is. They've designed it. They've chosen it. So you've got to be clear on what's blocking you. You got to be clear on what you want. And then you've got to condition your mind so that you can start moving in that direction and get that.
And where do you start with all that? Do you sit down with a pad of paper? I mean, how do you kind of begin the process? Because I know there's a lot of people that are watching or listening to this because we do it in multiple modalities, right? It'll be in audio, it'll be in transcript, it'll be in video, all of that to accommodate folks that are thinking to themselves, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I'm feeling you. That's good. Where do I start? How do I put together my blueprint or my something? Do you have a method or something you recommend?
If you don't know what your purpose is, or I should say your next purpose, because as going through life, generally we have multiple purposes throughout life. If you don't know what your purpose is or your next purpose is, then your purpose should be to find your purpose. And that's going out and experimenting with different ideas to find out what you like and you don't like. When I was a carpenter and I wanted to become a speaker, I had this idea of becoming a speaker. I didn't even know speaking was a profession. I had no idea. My dad was a pastor, and that was the only kind of speaking that I knew was pastors and politicians. Those are the only people I knew that spoke.
Pastors and politicians. Man, that sounds like some kind of a bad movie or something. I don't know, dude.
A book or something. Who knows?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And I didn't realize that was actually a career and that it's actually one of the most high-paying careers that you can have in life. But I went to an event that was a multi-speaker event. It was in Boston. And there was a couple speakers up there that were talking about stock markets and real estate. And I had been in real estate for a while at that point. I'd made most of my money in real estate up until that point. But then this guy comes on, you know, this great big guy, big hands, big teeth, named Tony Robbins. And he starts speaking, and he's speaking maybe 20 minutes. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to do what this guy is doing. I want to inspire people, motivate people, help people transform their lives. I didn't want to become another Tony Robbins, of course, but that idea of wow, being on stage. And I had never been on a stage before. I had no idea. I'd never, ever spoken in front of an audience. Had no idea what it took. No idea what it took to write a book, to publish a book, to sell a book, to sell thousands and thousands of copies. But I had no idea how to do any of it. But I was given this spark, this idea that called to me, just like the Run Across America was eventually was called to me. You got to follow that. That's divine intervention, saying this is where you need to go. But most people ignore it, saying some version of that's ridiculous. I can't do that.
Now, what can you do to foster that idea blossoming inside? Like I, for example, am very committed to my spiritual practice. I devote a substantial amount of time every single day to my prayer and meditation, chanting in my case. What can others do that don't know what to do to find some inspiration? To what kind of habit or ritual can they adopt to get themselves into that space where the universe starts talking back to them?
This comes down to a couple of things. One is you need to experiment with things. Like I went to Toastmaster meetings in the beginning to find out if I even like speaking or even if I could. I had a lot of side business. I had my construction business at the time, but I did a lot of side things to find out if I liked them as well. And most of them, I realized that this wasn't even close to what I thought it would be. And none of them I actually liked by any degree. So it was a way of just experimenting and finding out what I did like and what I didn't like. But then part of that is also getting quiet. And so when I run, that becomes part of my meditation. I also meditate and chant and do all of those, the incantations. I do all of that as well. But the running is my biggest point. In fact, I can't even say it's running. It's the walking. So if I'm running and I get to a point where I'm pushing my body to its limit, and then eventually I need to walk. And it's the walking that I find that I get my greatest inspiration and insight and probably closest connection to that divine intervention, whatever that is, God, universe, Buddha, whatever you want to call it. And it's those moments walking in nature is that I get that. Meditating, I can get it too, but I actually get it better when I'm walking in nature. But you need to have that quiet time. You have to have that moment. That's meditation to me is allowing that space between thoughts to get bigger. So most of us, we have whatever it is, tens of thousands of thoughts a day. And so our mind is just going, and there's no space between our thoughts. Meditation or walking in nature is allowing those spaces between thoughts to get bigger and bigger. And it's in those voids, those spaces, that these divine interventions will talk to you.
You know, it's super interesting because I 100% am with you on this. And all the books that I've written, 19 of them now.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, 19 books. I write them walking. I write them by walking. And so I just finished a few months ago, I finished a master's degree program in global citizenship and value creating education. And it was largely philosophy, basically. It was a lot of philosophy stuff. So we're reading Immanuel Kant and Pestalozzi and John Dewey and Friedrich Nietzsche and all these guys. And I learned something from that many of those major world-renowned philosophers were walkers. So I thought, why is Nietzsche renowned for walking the Alps in Switzerland? So I started to dig a little bit deeper into it. And it turns out, and I know you're into all of this as well, Croix, and that is, there is some mental secretions, there's some chemicals in your brain that when you're in that methodical walking, get opened up and expanded to where all these thoughts come in. And that's one of the major reasons why you can look all the way back to Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. All of them were walkers. They walked and thought and walked and thought and walked and thought. And the repetitive motion of walking actually opens up that space so that you can have more things that creep into your thoughts, as opposed to another stimulus, another stimulus, another stimulus that we deal with all day long.
Even with our modern masters today, many of them are known for walking. Steve Jobs was famous for taking walking meetings. And so that there's part of it. And the reason for that is the physiology aspect of it too. Your body is going through this process of while it's walking, you have the endorphins, the adrenaline, and all the other chemical reactions that happen in your body. And what that happens is that it increases the circulation of flow to your brain, plus the chemicals of the adrenaline and the endorphins and all that, which activates different parts of your brain. And so just like writing activates different parts of your brain than speaking or listening or even typing on a computer, walking creates the same sort of effect, and it allows your mind to think more freely because your body is occupied. So when I meditate, some of the times I go to a Tibetan monastery in Connecticut, close to where I live, and they have you do these hand motions. And the reason for that is that your body is occupied doing something that allows your mind, those spaces of thought, to get bigger. And so there's a direct connection with that. It's why Steve Jobs and Socrates and Plato and Nietzsche, all these guys were famous for their walking.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the beliefs aspect, because you and I, we've had conversations about this before. Beliefs drive everything. Nobody does anything without a belief. Jim Rohn, my personal mentor, used to talk about this all the time, about everything starts with your personal philosophy that creates your beliefs, that create the thoughts that lead to the actions that lead to the results, and nothing happens without that belief initially. What are some of the things that people should be paying attention to when it comes to their own beliefs, and how can they strengthen the ones that serve them?
I think one of the most important aspects of life is to learn to listen to yourself, the positive, I can do it voices, as compared to all of the times you've been told all your life that you can't do it. Because we're naturally born to believe that we can do it. If you look at any child, they believe that they can do anything, up until a point that their mom and their dad and their teachers and whoever is telling them no, 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 no. Eventually they realize that no becomes a more powerful thought process than the thought process of yes, I can. Or it's not even a thought process of yes, I can. They just do it. And they don't even think about it until, a mom or a dad or somebody says, no, don't do that. It's dangerous.
Right.
And most of the time it isn't dangerous, but as adults, we want to guard our children and we want to protect them, and of course want to keep them safe. And most adults don't have a really great communication ability. And so what we do is we just yell, no, 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 don't do that. It's bad. It's dangerous. It's dirty. It's why we have bad money habits, because we were growing up taught that money is dirty. People are crooks. To get rich, you have to step on other people or take advantage of them. And we hear these bad phrases over our lives and we believe them, not intentionally. We don't just accept this, but we hear it often enough and it becomes a type of hypnosis. If you hear that rich people are crooks, politicians are crooks, or some version of that, money doesn't grow on trees, you hear that over and over and over, eventually that gets into your subconscious mind, gets deep, deep into your subconscious mind, layers and layers deep. And as adults, we have to unprogram that and reprogram it with something new. So I strongly believe that humans are addictive personalities. And so if you have one thought, you can't just not have that thought anymore. You got to replace it with another thought. Mm-hmm. So if you have a negative thought on money and you discover that, you've got to reprogram that with something positive. You have a negative belief about money or health or fitness, staying healthy and fit. You've got to get rid of that negative thought and then reprogram with something positive. Because if we don't reprogram our mind from all of those negative things we've heard all over our lives, we won't realize why we stay stuck. And it's not our voice. It's not our authentic, innate voice that we're born with. Our innate voice that we're born with is that we can do anything. It's everybody else's voice that we've heard over and over and over and over and over is what we end up believing. So as an example, I was speaking at one of my speeches running across America was in a East Texas high school. 600 whatever students there, great big auditorium, all high school kids from 9th grade up to 12th. And at the end of it, I would sign books. I gave away books to every student and I would sign them. And there was a girl sitting out in the back waiting, away from everybody else, kind of chubby, kind of frumpy, a little disheveled, obviously not, just by looking at her, you could tell there was something going on. But she waited off to the side. All the other kids, they signed their books and they eventually left. And she waited until the auditorium was essentially empty. And she came up to me and she said, Croix, I got to tell you something. Every day for all of my life, as long as I remember, my mom is saying, I wish I never had you. You're a piece of shit. You're never going to amount to anything. Now get the F out of my house. And I doing everything I can not to start crying right there because there was so much emotion in her voice. And I paused and I let her gather her thoughts to finish what she was going to say. And she says, but you know what? I realized that somebody else's beliefs does not have to become my beliefs. I believe I can become something, and I will. I don't know what it's going to be, but I will do something with my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I didn't speak to that audience, that girl may have never heard this message. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows?
Sure.
And that's an extreme example, but it's unfortunately too common of an example. But the more dangerous one is the ones that you don't realize that you're being programmed for negativity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the relative, the mom, the dad, the sister, brother, whoever, that says something like, you have this great idea. I'm going to run across America. Oh, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
It's like, they're not saying it's bad directly, but they're saying it indirectly.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to school, or I'm going to start my own business. Oh, don't start your own. I've heard of so many people fail at their own businesses. Haven't you ever heard that 95% of businesses fail?
Mm-hmm.
That's not a true fact, by the way, but it's one that perpetuates. It's a legend, a myth that we have that perpetuates. It's not even close to 95% fail, but that's what is perpetuated. And so other people believe that. And people that give you this advice are almost always people who have no experience in that business whatsoever.
Exactly.
And yet we believe them.
It's like listening to your broke uncle telling you how to make money. Right?
Exactly. Or your fat relative that tells you how to lose weight, or what's not going to work and are going to work.
Yeah, exactly right. And I love that. I saying to some people, okay, fill in the blank. Rich people are blank, 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 blank. And generally what you hear is those negative things. Rich people are stingy. Rich people are crooks. Rich people are arrogant. Rich people are this. And therefore the association is, since I don't want to be a crook or arrogant or stingy, I definitely don't want to be rich. Exactly. I'm going to stay in poverty mode over here until as opposed to rich people are generous, philanthropic, amazing, adventurous, unique, different, and all those other things that we have to do to reprogram. I remember Jim Rohn would say, because I want to ask you what tips you can give people to do that reprogramming. Because Jim used to say all the time, we are the sum total of the things we read, the things we listen to, the things we watch, and the people we associate with. And if you want to change your life, look at changing all of those inputs so that you have a different kind of an output. What is your method, or what do you coach people to do if they're looking for, okay, I'm in, I want to do that. Where do I start? Do I read books? Do I listen to, what can I do to get that process of shifting going for myself?
The very first thing is being open to the idea that you might just be wrong, that you might just have some bad programming. Because if you're open to it, then you'll start to realize and catch these phrases. You'll realize that you have a resistance to spending money for things. As an example, if you have a resistance to spending money for something, that's either because you shouldn't be spending the money because it's a dumb idea, or it's because you have a negative program against spending money. So spending money on something like a book that's going to educate you is always a good idea. Even if it's like your last dollar, to spend your last dollar to buy a $20 book, that's a really good idea, because that's going to most likely help bring you to another level. But to spend $20 on going out and drinking with friends, your last $20, that's probably not a great idea. So the resistance is either it's a dumb idea, or I just have this bad programming. So when you realize it, then you have to realize, okay, now I have this, how do I change it? And part of changing that is just wait, cancel. This is a negative thought. What I actually meant was, and then reprogram your mind with that. I also strongly recommend journaling by hand, written with a pen and a piece of paper. I have a couple of journals out there that are for this. And in fact, I'm creating my newest program called Transform. It's going to be a book and a journal, is just for that exact reason. I have a friend who's now probably a multi-millionaire at this point. But back a few years ago, when we were close friends, we were having breakfast one day, and he's like, I'm starting this new thing. Every day I'm writing down 25 times, I am going to be a net millionaire, meaning I have $1 million in my bank account. I am a net millionaire. I am a net millionaire. He wrote that down 25 times. It took him less than a year before he broke the threshold of having $1 million. He had been doing well, and not like he was broke, but he had never come close to the $1 million threshold. But he wrote that every day. And it's not so much like the writing of it isn't going to give you the $1 million. It isn't going to show up in your lap, but that reprograms your mind. And now what else do you have to do to align yourself to become that millionaire? And so other things happen. You become more productive. You stop doing the things get in your way. You get rid of the businesses that aren't making you money and focus on the businesses that are. Those are, as examples. So writing's another way. Meditation, you talked about it, incantations, meditation, chanting, walking, all of those things. They're all great ideas. But it all comes down to having a goal, knowing the direction you're going in, and start moving towards that. And the habits, the beliefs, you got to change it all. It doesn't happen overnight, no matter what anybody says. These 7-day challenges change your life. It's all BS. It takes every single day. And if you're not willing to embrace that idea that this is a lifetime effort, you're always going to struggle. You're always going to be broke. You're always going to be overweight, unfit, in bad relationships, toxic relationships. It's all going to be a problem, and it's all going to repeat itself. And then eventually one day you're going to ask yourself, what do these things have in common?
Yeah. One common denominator, me. It's so interesting, man, because I was literally yesterday, I was walking and I was thinking about the people in my own spiritual community who are not getting ahead, and asking myself the question as a spiritual leader, what is the one thing that they're not doing enough of? And I had to really dig deep and say, okay, the easy answer is they're not doing enough of the practice that's going to get them ahead. In this case, chanting, the spiritual belief, meditation, whatever it is. But then I had to think about, okay, what does that mean? Well, what it really means is when people sit down and they start chanting, if they don't do enough of it, all they're focused on is all their problems, their challenges, their stuff, their whatever. What have I got going on today? Who's going to be mad at me at work? What's going on with the kids, the parents, the dog, the thing, the whatever. You got to do enough to get past all of that, to start working on what limiting beliefs do I need to challenge right now? What areas of my world can I improve? How can I tap a little deeper into the source? All of that. If you don't do enough, if you don't sit in stillness for long enough, you don't get to that space where there's space between the thoughts, because there's just so much noise coming from everywhere. And I really was like, I got to share that message more clearly to people, that you can't just do 2 minutes of meditation and think you're going to have these massive brain breakthroughs. You got to put in the effort and the time to create the space for those realities to creep in.
It's absolutely true. We overwhelm ourselves with this idea of, or these ideas of how much work or how hard it has to be. It doesn't have to be hard. Everything can be easy when you're in alignment where you want to go. It's hard when you're not in alignment. When you don't know what direction you want to go, you don't know what you want, then it's hard. If you're trying to meditate for the sake because you believe meditation is a good idea, it's going to be hard. But if you're aligned with the idea that meditation is going to make my life better, and the process, the journey is actually the destination. Mm-hmm. The destination isn't some point you get to in the future. It's the destination is the journey. I mean, it's literally true. It's a cliche, I know, but that is actually true.
Sure.
You ask anybody, or if you study, because I've studied people who have come into millions and millions of dollars, like say lotto winners as an example, or inheritances, things like that. People who have come into, all of a sudden have come into a ton of money. And I forget what the number is, but it's something like 85% of them are worse off than they were before they got the money within 5 years. Mm-hmm. Because they never changed the mindset about who they were around money. And they just went out and spent, or gave it away. Many of them just give it away because they're uncomfortable with millions of dollars, because they never changed the mindset. They didn't embrace this idea that this life is the journey, and that's how you succeed. Every great philosopher has fully embraced this idea that life's the journey, and it's a process, and it's every day. You can't meditate once and all of a sudden, like, you're this spiritual Buddhist, monk person. You don't eat one healthy salad and you're healthy for life, or go to the gym and have one crazy boot camp exercise and you're healthy for life. No, it's every day, or most every day anyway. It's a regular, consistent thing that always happens. And that's how you get to the things you want, whether it's spiritual meditation, spiritual enlightenment, or if it's financial enlightenment, if you want to call it that, or
Sure.
physical, or relationships. And even you and I, we've been on this journey for probably decades at this point, probably more than we want to admit.
Yep.
And yet, at least for me, I know I can personally speak, I'm still uncovering, pulling back layers of the onion of negative beliefs that I haven't discovered up until this point. And I can't discover the negative belief I have today without the one I got rid of yesterday or the day before. It's literally like pulling back an onion. Once you get rid of one, it's like, oh, there's another one. So there's another level of enlightenment. Buddhist monks that meditate for, what do they meditate like for 8 hours a day or something like that? They years and years and years after it, they reach new levels of enlightenment. And they've been meditating for whatever it is, 4 or 8 hours a day for 20 years, and they're still reaching new levels of enlightenment. That is such a cool thing. That's not like it's not something to think about. Was that?
I was in Bhutan, and I went to Tiger's Nest, and Tiger's Nest it's that crazy monastery that's literally in the side of a huge rock way up in the middle of nowhere. You've seen it in pictures before. And Tiger's Nest, there's a little house off to the side.
Okay.
And there's a monk who's privileged and honored to be chosen to get to go into that house. And they walk into that house and they're in that little 1-room house. I think there's a little bathroom in there, I guess. Has to be. For 3 years, 3 months, 3 days, and 3 hours before they come out of the house. This is in the Himalayan mountains, dude. They're in that house. They bring them food at the door of the house, and they don't leave the house from meditating for that long, for over 3 years. And it's considered a big honor to be in there. And I was like, man, I wanted to go just peek and look and see if the dude was there, Of course, I didn't out of respect, but I kind of wanted to. It is remarkable when you hear, Nelson Mandela coming out of prison after 27 years, and all of a sudden he's the president of South Africa. The mind is such an amazing, incredible thing. We take it for granted, and we forget that we are the architects of our lives, and we got to do something to make sure that our beliefs, our habits, and our behaviors are in line with what we're trying to accomplish. Not so easy. Fortunately, you have some stuff that can help people with that. Am I right?
Yeah, I do. Great segue.
You like that? I thought that was pretty smooth myself,
That was very smooth. I like that.
Well, here in the Groove Growth community, we have a chance to speak with some real visionary leaders, some people who do amazing things. And sometimes if they're a CEO or whatever, they're just giving back. They don't have anything else to offer, but oftentimes they do. And in the case with you, Croix, I'm very, very happy to let the Groove community know that you can click on the button down below and go check out these things that can help you reform your habits, your behaviors, your beliefs to get you the things that you're looking to accomplish in your life. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, what I like about it too is in this process of going from carpenter to author, speaker, all this other stuff, supposed expert, is that the whole journey I've been struggling to find what's that one thing that can actually help the vast majority of people. And it took me 15 years to finally get clarity on this. And I'm calling it transform. And so the idea is that you transform your life by transforming your thoughts, your beliefs, and then your habits. And I have everything from free up to, other programs. That's all based on this simple process of how you start your day, and the thoughts that you have is what controls not only that day, but your whole life. And so it's a simple program that I walk you through of, like we've talked about, writing down your goals, getting clarity, and changing your mindset. How do you change your mindset? How do you reprogram your mind? And all these different things, a super simple methodology for changing everything in your life. And if you want an overnight success thing, you think that some golden ticket that's going to change your life in an instant moment, I'm not your guy, because that doesn't happen. It's not reality, but I've broken it down into the most simple method for actually getting real results in your life. And it's combined everything I've done all of my life, but especially the last 15 years with the world records, running a marathon a day, all the books I've written, speaking all over the world, all of these things I finally brought into one thing. And this is, like you talked about, there are CEOs that just want to give back. This is in part giving back, but it's also a program that helps people. So if you have no money whatsoever, this can still help you. You don't have to buy my book. You can get the portion of it that's online for free. If you want the book, that's fantastic. And I'm a firm believer that you should have as many mentors and teachers as you possibly can afford, or manage, or swindle, or whatever it takes to get it. And so that's why I created this in this format to help the greatest amount of people that I possibly can.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. And Groovesters, you know what I'm going to say? Hit the button and go check out the stuff. Go get some of Croix's material that you feel is a fit for you so that you can do amazing things like Croix has. By the way, do you ever count up how many countries you've spoken in so far?
Well, I've sold in like 71 countries now. My books are in the vast majority of countries of the world. I forget what the number is now. So I think it was 76 last time I counted.
Yeah.
But spoken personally, it's been a couple of dozen.
Yep. I actually went back and figured out, and because of being on the CEO circuit, I've done now 35 countries. The only continent that I haven't is Antarctica. And I'm not sure I really want to go there, so I'm good.
Well, one of the reasons I live in South America now is because I want to become fluent in Spanish, so that I can start giving my talks in Spanish as well, start writing in Spanish and talking in Spanish. And I can speak conversationally very well, but I'm not at the, professional speaker, get on a stage level yet, but I'm working on it.
Well, one final thing before you go, because I happen to know that you're training and putting together the next Croix Sather ridiculous adventure. Tell us what you're looking to accomplish so that we can all kind of at least mentally put our mind behind you and send you some good vibes.
I have this strong belief that age is a minor factor in how healthy and strong we can live our lives. And I'm living to that standard. And so I have a buddy that I trained with here. He's 70 or 72 years old. I forget. He's every bit as strong as I am. He looks amazing. He's in fantastic mental, physical condition. And so guys like that, they're my mentors. And so now that I'm getting a little bit older, I just crossed 50, almost 50. Well, how old am I? 52 now almost. And I was like, I got to do at least one more great, epic, wildly, seemingly impossible thing. And so I decided I'm going to run from the southern point of South America to the northern point of South America. So the whole continent, which is more than double than run across America. So it's a marathon a day for approximately 8 months, give or take.
That's insane.
Running through over the Andes Mountains several times, running on the coast, going from the southern point closest to Antarctica up into the Caribbean coast of Colombia. I'm going to have to be running through some cartel-infested areas. So it's not all safe. Well, the majority of South America is safe and amazing and beautiful. I love the Latino culture. Absolutely extraordinarily people. There are pockets that are not such a great idea to be in. And then everything that goes along with it. And I believe I can do it. I'm training for it now. It's why I did my 3 days of hard training yesterday. I'm living in Medellin, Colombia, which is in the Andes Mountains. So I'm training at anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 feet above sea level. And I'm running mountains almost every single day to get ready for it, because this is going to be significantly harder than anything I've ever done. Well, we're running literally more than twice as far as across America. From the southern tip of the Latin American peninsula to the northern part, that's Croix Sather. Nobody else but Croix would do something like this. So to all of the Groove community, this is an amazing individual, really worth seeking out. Definitely hit the button below. Go check out the material that Croix has to offer so that you too can do amazing things in whatever way you're supposed to be amazing. Croix, on behalf of the entire Groove Growth community, just want to say, my brother, my mentor, my mainest man, thank you so much, dude. Really, really appreciate the time you've given us, all the lessons, all the insights, truly amazing. And of course, I wish you the very best as you run up South America. And then let me leave the audience with this thought, is that it's not about the run. It's about living the life that you want to live and living it up to the maximum level that you can possibly do. Running is just a tool for me. It's a way of experiencing the world and accomplishing something incredible. And you don't have to run a single step to create an extraordinary life. Create something that you love. Croix Sather, everybody. Thank you so much, Croix. Deeply, deeply appreciate you and look forward to hearing about your next amazing adventure. Thanks so much. Thank you.